Hi, welcome back to the Catholic Family Podcast. I'm Lawrence.
And I'm Michelle.
We're going to get started with a quick prayer. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Ghost. Amen. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou among women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus.
Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners now and at the hour of our death. Amen.
Most Sacred Heart of Jesus.
Place my trust in thee.
In the name of the Father, and the Son, and of the Holy Ghost. Amen.
Sorry. I almost said the wrong thing. So this morning we are coming back after 2 weeks of completely dropping the ball on the podcast. And we're talking about patience and tolerating children because I feel like the world does not have a lot of tolerance for children. And it's very sad because they are the most precious gift in this world. They are the most important work. They're the most important job for every generation. That does not change. And there are a lot of misbehaved kids, and it's through no fault of their own initially, because you cannot expect someone to just be born perfect. Tell me if this sounds accurate as a parent. As a parent, I feel so guilty or weird. Like, you feel like a hypocrite when, like, we are so imperfect, but then we're after our kids to be perfect. It feels just wrong. And at the end of the day, you need to give them grace because they are just children. And we're begging God for the same grace because we are human. So we're going to dig into that a little bit today. And also, it is through every stage of life, right? So, you know, if you've ever caretook for an elderly person, it requires not that different of the same kind of patience as when you're caring for a small child, because they really do become like children again. And if you don't have a higher level of understanding and love and really take a deep breath in those moments, you just aren't going to be able to handle it. And I personally don't like that feeling. I don't like the feeling of being impatient. It really upsets me. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. Do you have anything to say about that?
No.
Oh, come on.
No, I mean, like with little kids, I mean, you know what you want, like an end result. Like, you want them to be able to handle every situation. But the thing is they don't know what the proper reaction is to anything. Like, when you see little kids doing that, that's just, their minds are just going and they're just experiencing everything. So if you're wanting them to have a certain set of like behavioral patterns, you have to show them those things rather than just expect it. And that's what's hard, especially with like really little kids. They're not going to understand all the words you use trying to explain them how to behave in certain situations. But when you get impatient and you get frustrated with them, that's what they're developing. And then that's what the hard thing to remember is that when you're trying to teach little kids, it's the way you're doing it more than what you're teaching them.
Yeah.
That is what's going to help them the most, because then they're going to learn how to talk calmly to each other, how to interact with other little kids or their siblings. The biggest influence on that is going to be how you are handling them, not so much the message behind it.
Yeah. You know, in school, there's visual learners and audio learners. And when it comes to behavior and the example that you set, that's both. They really do copy everything you do and say. And if you want your children to be virtuous, first of all, you have to be practicing the virtue. You can't, like I said, you can't expect perfection from an imperfect person. So we always have to be working on ourselves. And I have a story about this because during Easter week, sorry, oh my goodness, I can't talk right now. During Easter week, I made like a commitment. I was like, no matter what, we are going to Mass every single day this week. And I told the kids, I said, prepare yourselves because I'm getting you up. We're going to go to Mass every day. I want to keep the good, momentum going that we had from a good Lent. And day one, Monday, Easter Monday, the devil works so hard on me. I can't even tell you. I'm sitting at our breakfast table And our toddler comes out, and he's like a little baby Linus. He always has this blanket that he carries with him. And he comes and he sits he's dragging the blanket, and he comes and he sits next to me in the chair. And I was just finishing my coffee and, keeping track of my communion fast. And I looked down at him and I said, "Are you wet?" And he said, "Yes, I peed." And I was like, "Oh, it went through. He's still in diapers." And I said, did you pee in your bed?" And he said, "No, I peed in my bed." And he calls, for reference, our bed, my bed, because we always tell him, "No, you can't sleep in my bed. You have to sleep in your bed." And so he's like, "No, I peed in my bed." And the nights run together. I honestly blacked out and didn't remember him sleeping with us. And I was like, "Oh, okay." So I get up to go and change our sheets. And as I'm taking the sheets off our bed, I get around to my husband's side of the bed, and there's a giant puddle of sickness from our dog. Poop sickness. And when our toddler had gotten off the bed, he dragged his blanket through it, and our house is kind of like a circle, around through the living room, through the kitchen, to where he was sitting next to me. So I literally had to clean all the floors in the house, and mass started in 40-ish minutes. And I was in my pajamas. All the kids were in their pajamas. I'll try and summarize this a little faster. It was a mess. And so I started to mop the floor. And as I was using the mop that we have, it's electric, I didn't realize that he had been playing with the mop and took the filter out. So dirty water is just going everywhere. So I had to remop that room. And meanwhile, the kids, the little ones, are starving. I'm like, "Sorry guys, you're not getting a snack before mass." And everyone's still in their pajamas. So I asked my oldest son, I said, "Can you please try and get the kids ready?" And I said out loud to the devil, I said, "You are not keeping me from mass. You are not keeping me from receiving Holy Communion. You're not winning this battle." And I said it out loud because I could tell my son was watching me, and he could see how stressed out I was trying to deal with this problem. And were it not for the fact that I don't like hearing impatient words that I have said in the past, that he has said in the past, come out of our children's mouth, you can so easily lose it. But when you have those eyes on you, it actually gives you
pause.
It gives you pause. It makes you, I feel like, more accepting of the grace that God has right there. It's always right there. And knowing that his eyes were on me, I was just like, I can't lose this. I cannot let the devil win this. And it was fine. I cleaned the floor. We're all the kids were dressed. I got dressed, and as I was wiping my feet, because I had just been walking everywhere, there was poop. And I was like, "You know what? Forget it. We're going to mass. I'll clean the floors again when we get home." So it was just the devil just works so hard on me. It's just little things like that can really throw off a mom's day, as if we're not overstimulated enough. And that's another thing as parents. We just got back from a road trip, and the kids were actually super good.
But finishing your story,
yeah,
with him helping out.
Oh, yeah.
That was kind of your point, was that
yeah.
he stepped up. He recognized that all the problems going on. He knew what the goal was.
Yeah.
And rather than adding to it, sometimes kids will feed on the negative energy and it'll just be chaos.
Which he does actually like to do.
And that's just a kid thing.
Yeah.
They tend they see something going one way and they all do the same thing, even if it's what makes everything harder.
Mm-hmm.
When you see your kid will actually stop, assess the situation, and be like, "Okay, I need to help." Yeah. So helping the little kids get dressed, helping get all the shoes and coats on, and just taking over, being that little man of the house, because he recognizes what's going on, rather than freaking out and joining all the chaos.
That's actually really good for kids to see. I think it's good for them to see you handle tough situations, because another example is we got allergy tested, and our son is deathly afraid of anything pokey. Anything pokey. Yeah. And if you've ever had allergy testing done, they have plastic little tiny spikes and the allergen on them, and they roll it on your skin. It really doesn't hurt. his anxiety, got it all worked up about it, and I told myself, I was like, buddy, it's not a big deal. And I had it done with him, and so I'm sitting down in the chair next to him, and he just sees me completely calm, like they're just poking my back. No big deal, and he handled it great. So just, you know, setting the example of what you want to see in your kids, that's really the biggest thing. But, you know, there's so much, like, there's so many parents way more experienced than us with older kids. And I do think, like, every season of life requires a different kind of patience, a different kind of understanding and love. There's understanding and patience for your spouse. There's patience and understanding for teenagers and what they're going through developmentally. And looking back at when we just had one baby, like, oh my goodness, how overstimulated and like impatient you feel at times, trying to adjust to that, to having kids, to not having freedom in every possible way. Like, I think about that sometimes when, you know, you just need to go to the bathroom, or you're so hungry, but everyone else needs something that, you know, you're not going to get to eat for another couple hours because you have so much going on. And the sacrifices, even though they're really small, they're still there. And like I feel like we've come a long way from what was required of us with one child. But that's God's plan, right? You're always trying to grow. I told my mom one time, I said, I don't even need to, I could walk into the confessional and just tell the priest, like, it's Michelle, Father. And he would know all my sins, because I feel like they're always the same. Do you feel that way?
Sometimes.
It's always impatience. Whether or not I show it, I feel it inside, and I will probably always be working on this. And so I'm like, let's do a podcast on it.
Yeah. Sorry, did I cut you off earlier? You were talking about the trip.
Oh, I was going to. Yeah, but I forgot what I was going to say.
Okay. Never mind.
Yeah.
But they handled it well.
They handled it awesome. Yeah. Well, okay, so I was going to say road trips, being in a car for a really long time with children. Like, you know, we prayed our rosary. They watched something on Kindle part of the time because it was such a long trip. But on the way back, they didn't do any of that. We prayed the rosary and they slept a little.
And the two youngest ones cried.
They cried a little bit. No, they didn't. It wasn't
at least
the whole way. Yeah, that was a lot. I think they torture prisoners like that.
Just like babies.
Babies cried. But they were just so tired. They just needed to, once they fell asleep, it was fine. It was fine. I think that's another thing I've been seeing a lot on social media, the generational differences. You know, and first-time parents, when the baby cries, first-time parents freak out. It's usually gas. Like, don't you think 90% of the time the baby has to too?
They have to eat or they have to poop.
Yeah, and as long as they're fed and safe and clean, it's probably gonna be fine. The baby's gonna be fine.
Your baby's gonna cry.
They're safe. Yeah. Babies cry up to 3 hours a day, I think, is normal for babies. But no, they were probably a little car sick. All our kids tend to get a little car sick. And they were just overtired, because weren't we all? It was a lot. But no, that trip went really well. But kind of another example of the different patience that's required of us as parents. In another story, I had taken all 4 kids to the dentist with me, and for teeth cleanings, not the baby obviously, but the older ones had teeth cleanings. And then, as if I'm not masochistic enough for doing that by myself, I took them to Costco afterwards. And it was fine. Like, the older ones really are helpful now, so it's not as stressful as you think it would be, you know, taking a bunch of kids. Honestly, I think the most annoying thing is people's comments when you have more than like 1 or 2 kids. You tend to get comments like, well, you got your hands full, or you know, there's something you can do about that, or I've heard every like horrible.
Are you guys done?
Yeah, every horrible comment you can imagine. But on our way out of Costco, I have a cart full of groceries and a cart full of kids. Like, the older ones are hanging on the sides, and next to me, because there's 2 lines going out, there's a like new parents. They have probably a 1.5-year-old or 2-year-old in the basket of the cart, and then a new baby in the car seat in the, I don't know, the open part of the cart. And it looked like the dad and maybe his sister or the mom's sister, you know, for like helping them because it was a new baby. And I was just, the baby was like beet red crying. And you could barely hear it because, first of all, Costco is super loud. And the baby cry is just so cute. It's so sweet. And I'm just staring at the baby, and then I'm like, oh, shoot, they're probably going to think I'm just like such a weirdo. So, like, the dad looked up at me, and I looked at him, and I said, oh, man, that's the cutest sound in the world. And he looked so tired, and he just looks at me, and he's like, you know, it took me a while to realize that. And I said, oh, I know. I think it's because we get so self-conscious. You know, like in public, you're so worried about what people are going to think.
Well, then that's the unfortunate thing is there are so many people that will comment and they'll say negative stuff. It's like, it's normal for a baby to be crying. Like we've met and know so many people that like, they just won't go shopping with their kids anymore because they're afraid of comments. And it's like, you know, that's normal. It's normal for a baby to cry. They're not going to like being contained, you know, in a shopping cart, things like that. Like, I don't know. I wish whatever. I mean, sometimes when it gets overbearing, it's like, okay, we can just take a step out. But
yeah,
I would, you know, don't become a recluse just because people's comments. You know, it's normal for your baby to cry. And people that make those comments either 1, don't have kids, 2, don't like kids, or 3, they're just in denial of what their kids were like back when they had them.
It is amazing the number of people that just don't like kids.
Yeah.
I remember I think I told this story before. We were out to dinner with some friends, and they did not have any children. And it was before I got pregnant with our third, or maybe I knew I was pregnant, but we weren't telling people yet. We tend to wait a long time because I've had miscarriages. And we were talking to them, and they asked, like, so are you guys done? And they know we're Catholic, but I don't think that they were thinking, like they probably maybe think the way modern Catholics.
Yeah, they don't.
Yeah, they don't realize that, you know, they believe abortion's murder, but I don't think they think the same about birth control. You know, and it's sad that even some Catholics think birth control's fine, and it's like, where'd you get your education? Anyway, different topic. But I said, oh no, we're gonna have more kids. Like and I always tell people when they say like, oh, do you have a number you're going for? And I said, that's up to God. That's usually always my response. But
people never know how to respond.
They don't. I'm like, fight that. But she said, because I highly discourage you from having more children. And I didn't really know what to say to that. I think I maybe changed the subject because that was weird. I'm like, this is none of your business, really. So yeah, some people just don't like children. And granted, there are some children that I have been around where it's like, okay, you are why. You are why people don't like children. Well, I used to work at a supplement store, and there were some parents that would come in with their children and did not teach their children how to behave in public. They were just careless parents. Their children would put out their arm and run down the aisle and literally wipe off we had hours of damage control after certain people would leave our store where we were realigning everything. Yeah. So I get it to an extent. There's children in church that I've seen people correct, and I wouldn't be offended if someone saw my child acting that same way and corrected my child, because although when I go into church, I have complete blinders on. I don't notice anything. I have, the only time I've noticed a child misbehaving, it was so bad. I don't like correcting other people's kids. I won't do it. I actually did it that one time. Because normally I don't even notice it. And I was just like, oh my goodness, I would want someone to correct that if it was my child. But you notice everything. I pretty much
just resort to the dad glare. When I see the kids moving, they catch my eye and they stop and turn around.
Yeah, I've seen the ushers correct a kid. You know, and But they did it out of a place of love because I know that they were a dad and they were, like noticing.
Well, it's in how it's done too.
Yeah,
I've seen people correct kids that I don't even think they even really knew, but it was just acting out so poorly that they're like, this has to stop, and they just put an end to it right there because the parents weren't doing anything. They're just letting it go. I don't know if it's because they just want their prayer time, they just don't care what their kids are doing as long as they're in church or what. But some of them, it's like, I mean, there was a time I saw kids running down a pew. It wasn't here.
Yeah.
And it took the guy in the pew behind them to grab both kids and sit them down because they were literally running up one pew and down the next pew during Mass, and the parents weren't doing anything. It's just like...
Yeah. It definitely needs to be taught. There was, when we were on vacation, we were at that was Mother's Day. We were at the breakfast part of our bed and breakfast. Like the hotel had a restaurant. And it's funny when people compliment you on your kids and you feel like, you've experienced everything, right? Mm-hmm. Because in public, we've definitely had disasters with children, like misbehaving. And not that our children like run around and act obnoxious. They don't do that. We would take them out to the car and we'd be like, we're done. We're leaving. And they'd be, we wouldn't stand for that. But we were at the restaurant and I wanted to get up to get some more food. And my son said, oh, I'll take the baby. And I was like, oh, you don't have to. And he's like, no, Mom, I want to. I want to hold him. So I gave the baby to him, and I got up and got some food. And the kids were getting a little antsy because they were done. And I was finished too. And Lawrence was just finishing his food. And they're like, can we go outside? There was a balcony. And I said, oh, yeah, I'll take you outside. Get him out there. And the lady that had been sitting behind us, I didn't even notice, she came outside and I'm just talking with the kids and we're just looking around. She came outside and she said, I just want to wish you happy Mother's Day and tell you that you have the most beautiful family and your children are so well behaved. And I was just like, thank you so much.
The funny part about those kinds of comments too is when you always want your kids to be on the best behavior. That's just normal. So if you're eating somewhere and you're correcting don't make such a mess. Little things like that where it's all the little things that you notice, but then when someone comes in and compliments like wow, your kids are amazing, it makes you kind of stop and realize you don't always need to be micromanaging everything. The bigger picture, your kids are all sitting down nicely, they're not being obnoxious, they're not being loud, they're eating well, they're helping each other out. Step back, you know what I'm saying? You don't need to be nitpicking on everything. It's not like you're, what are those things called where they take kids and they train them on how to act perfectly?
I don't know.
Or the thing for girls where they train them on how to be perfect table manners and all that kind of stuff.
Etiquette. Oh, Emily Post.
Yeah, things like that. It's your kids, they don't need that. You're not in some crazy high society thing where they have to be perfect all the time. It's those comments when you're just out and your kids, and then someone comes in and makes that comment to you where you realize okay, we've been doing the right thing. The kids have learned the proper behavior. If you're in a grocery store or you're anywhere and you get someone that comes up and says, hey, just wanted to say your kids are really well behaved. A lot of times really? Because I feel like I've been correcting them all the time. But then you stop and you realize all the things you're correcting them on aren't big things. It's just little almost the little nitpicky things, because as a parent you want your kids to be the best they can be. But it's those comments that make you stop and realize that
they're doing a good job.
They are doing a good job.
Yeah, they are.
And that's what matters is the world sees that and they recognize how well behaved they are in comparison to, I don't know, but probably in comparison to just kids they normally see public school kids, or like she said, kids you'll see in a store just being obnoxious and crazy and making messes.
Yeah.
So it's just, you don't knowing that you don't need to be always, I'm not harping, but always
I get it.
Critiquing everything they do, because they are kids and it is a learning process. So if you just let them enjoy their breakfast, they're behaving well, let them help out, they want to go back up, don't let them be crazy, but just set basic parameters and outlines for them, they do behave really well. So.
How's it going, bud? Our children have always been super good in restaurants, and I don't know if it's because we hardly ever take them to them.
I think it's because we make it a special thing.
It is so special.
And we've had to leave once or twice to where they know hey, this is something special. If you guys act poorly, we'll just leave.
Yeah, we
and
will
you'll lose
leave.
it. For them, it's something that it is such a not a rare thing, but it's a special thing that doesn't happen very often. So to risk losing it, they know, okay, we can't act this way.
Yeah.
And they'll behave to make sure they stay.
I've only ever had to leave someplace one time, and it was a grocery store, and I think it was just our first, and yeah, so with just one kid, and he just started throwing a tantrum in the store, and I literally just left my cart.
Yeah, and we've had a couple times where we've been together where it's like, all right, you stay here, I'm going out to the car.
Yes,
because there's just like meltdowns. The kids want to fall on the floor and have a fit right in the middle of, and it's like, okay,
this isn't
leaving.
happening. Yeah. So and then they get upset because they missed out. It's like, well, you didn't behave, so live and learn, man.
So it's the same concept, like whether it's shopping or going to a restaurant, like you will lose this.
Yeah.
And that at least for our kids, if it's not something that's a constant for them, something they look forward to, that'll be a punishment.
What are you doing? Did you stop? So kind of wrapping this up, because this is going a lot longer than we realized. I wanted to just say, after talking to a lot of moms, like whenever I get together with girlfriends or moms, it seems like this is a topic that we always talk about. And there's one other thing I want to say. You also need to give your husband grace. Because this is something I've that has come up, and you and I have talked about it, but I've also talked about it with girlfriends, where when a husband comes home and he gets like, he's impatient with the kids, because there seems to be like a witching hour, like an overstimulation. All the children have the zoomies, and it's dinner time, and dad's tired because he's worked all day, and you just want to have a peaceful meal. It happens. As a wife, when you've been dealing with it all day, it's kind of annoying when your husband can't handle it. And you're like, do you realize I do this all day long? Don't you know I feel the same way? You gotta give your spouse some grace. Like, this is, it's kind of annoying when they don't seem to have the tolerance level that you do, but this is also our job. Versus the job that they have, we would also probably feel our annoyances are different.
It's the opposing perspectives.
Yeah.
It's like, when you come home after working and it's like, all right, good, you're home. Kids are yours.
I know.
It's like, well, I just got home. I want to like try to like.
Yeah.
I mean, there's times where it's like I get home, the kids are like so much energy, and there's chores to do, and it's like before you realize it's 8 o'clock, you're still in your work clothes. You still need to like you don't get to start winding down until it's like 8:30.
To some people, that's probably really early. We go to bed, for the record, we're all asleep by like 8:30.
Yeah, but like for me, like if I'm up at 5 and then by 8:30 that night, I'm still in my work clothes because it's just never-ending stuff. That's where it's like it's hard to try to still maintain that like peaceful composure when it's like you feel dirty, you feel tired, like you just want to be clean and have a moment to relax. But sometimes it just doesn't ever happen, and and it is that first like there's a frustration on both ends where it's like for the woman like dealing with all that all day long and wanting a reprieve.
Well,
but
and
the
then
opposite side is the guy also working all day long wanting a reprieve.
Yeah.
So when you both want a reprieve at the same time,
and then you're both overstimulated from the children with the zoomies. So when I say patience, when we talked in the beginning, like patience with your children, it's patience with your spouse, it's patience with your grandma, your great grandma. There's all walks of life, and I feel that this virtue is one that you're always trying to perfect. We're always working on this. This is a great virtue to recommit to every morning with your morning offering. And the patience with the spouse, it just requires such a deep understanding. And I say we've talked about it because I know on the podcast I've said we've never had a fight. It's because we talk about everything. Like, we talk about everything. I mean, on our road trip, that's all that Lawrence and I did. It was, I honestly, that was probably my favorite part of the road trip is we're just sitting there and it's like, this is great. This is like date night. It's
that's
not
why also when you're in bed and you're ready to go to sleep, like, are you coming to bed yet? It's like, nope. I still have to shower and clean up, take care of animals. It's like, but it's, we talked about it, it's like, it'd be nice to be in bed at 8 or 8:30, but it's like, that's just not happening. And it's like,
well, I'm very tired because I have to feed the baby all night long. But if you have questions for us, I think it'd be really fun to do a Q&A if we got enough questions from people. It could be anything. It could be our favorite movie. I don't know. Just comment below, and I guess we will see you in our next podcast next Tuesday.
Yeah. We'll see
Thank you
then.
so much. God bless you and your family.